I'm overwhelmed of the fact that the charges have been drawn.
Tonight, charges dropped after a violent arrest over an expired license plate. All charges against Athabasca Chipewyan Chief Allan have been thrown out.
Anticipating that our fall season will basically be gone.
Fighting to survive. Indigenous tourism operators hope Canadians will keep their businesses alive as they struggle through the pandemic.
It's just nice to sit across from my dad for the first time. It was like, it's been 48 years, and we both look at each other and like, wow, this is great.
And a very special Father's Day. We meet a son and dad who meet for the first time after being separated for nearly 50 years. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. After the video of a violent arrest by Alberta RCMP went viral, charges against Allan, the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation chief, have been dropped. Chief Adams spoke to media after the charges were withdrawn. Tamara Pimentel has that story.
This dash cam video of Chief Allan Adams' arrest on March 10 shows Adam being tackled by an RCMP officer. The incident occurred over an expired license plate. Police charged the Athabasca Chipewyan chief with resisting arrest and assaulting a police officer. Today, Wednesday, June 24th, those charges were dropped. The Crown announced they were dropping the charges because they weren't in the public interest.
I'm overwhelmed of the fact that the charges have been drawn because, we knew, my wife and I knew that we didn't do nothing wrong.
Adam called on the country to address injustices and police brutality against Indigenous people. He referred to recommendations from the TRC, including cross-cultural police training and creating an Indigenous police force. Chief Adams' lawyer, Brian Barash, says this case shines a spotlight on systemic racism that has gone unchecked for too long.
The Attorney General's decision today validates Chief Adams' view that the RCMP charges were laid as a police shield to their aggressive and abusive conduct, not a true belief that criminal activity had occurred.
On Twitter, National Chief Perry Bellegarde welcomes the withdrawn charges, but says it's clear racism is embedded within most public institutions, specifically police. In a statement, the Alberta Crown says it has no comment on the actions of the police as they are being investigated by the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Calgary.
To the East Coast, and there are no boil water advisories in the Atlantic region, and communities want to keep it that way. So they're taking over water management from Indigenous Services Canada. The Atlantic First Nations Water Authority is the first Indigenous-owned and operated water authority in Canada. With funding of $2.5 million from the federal government to upgrade infrastructure and maintain safe drinking water. Chief Wilbert Marshall is the chair of the AFNWA. At the announcement Tuesday, he said the association will work with communities to manage water infrastructure.
The government steps in and they give you no choice. You got to do what they say. But now, that's not the way we see this. It's going to be based on our guys.
We're always looking for your feedback. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca or find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest Indigenous news. Still on the East Coast, starting July 3rd, travel restrictions will ease in the Atlantic region, but only within the 4 provinces called the Atlantic Bubble. The Atlantic Premier's announcement came today to boost summer tourism and businesses. Residents can travel within the 4 provinces without self-isolating. Provinces report no active cases, aside from New Brunswick, which reported 16 active cases as of today. A new Statistics Canada survey appears to show a disproportionate impact on the mental health of Indigenous people compared to non-Indigenous participants during this COVID-19 pandemic. Released yesterday, the survey found that 6 in 10 Indigenous participants said their mental health has become somewhat worse or much worse while physical distancing. 1,400 Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people over the age of 15 took part in the online questionnaire, which found Indigenous women are disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Nearly half of the women surveyed reported anxiety symptoms and stress, compared with 32% and 31% of Indigenous men, respectively. Indigenous tourism operators across Turtle Island have felt the negative impacts of the pandemic over the past 4 months. Recent research shows the industry could lose up to 700 Indigenous businesses and more than 21,000 jobs. But as Brittany Hobson shows us, the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada is determined to reverse that trend.
A new campaign developed by the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada is encouraging Canadians to explore their own backyards with the launch of Destination Indigenous. The online vacation planner showcases Indigenous experiences across Turtle Island. It was started in response to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
We're trying to stabilize as many businesses as we can. Our goal is ultimately to help at least 600 to 800 businesses survive this.
Keith Henry is the association's president and CEO. The group has recently developed a 4-year recovery plan with the goal of rebuilding the Indigenous tourism industry.
We've created a strategy that's going to talk about recovery, resiliency, and then full-on, back to rebuilding Indigenous tourism, back to roughly 1.9 billion direct GDP.
COVID-19 has forced the closure of borders and limited travel, meaning tourism businesses have taken a hit. A report released this month from the Conference Board of Canada estimates the sector will see $555 million by the end of 2020, down 65% from 2019. For the rest of the year, ITAC is putting the focus on promoting local Indigenous experiences.
It provides a platform that's safe for Canadians to want to just learn together, have fun, explore something for many Canadians, they don't even know anything about. And the more we know each other, the better place Canada becomes.
That's what David Daly is hoping to rely on. Daly owns several businesses in Churchill, including Athabasca Ventures, a dog sledding company.
I'm anticipating that our fall season will basically be gone, and we're just going to have to work at staycations with the Canadians here and try to get as many Canadians up to Churchill as we can to help us get through till next year, till tourism can return to somewhat.
Daly, who is also the Manitoba director for ITAC, says about 80% of the people who visit are from the States. The federal government has provided relief funding for Indigenous tourism. Daly received some of that and expects it will cover his businesses till the fall. Until then, he's keeping busy.
We're repairing dog houses and going through all our equipment and, just really taking the time to be ready. Like we want to, when this pandemic is over and they find a vaccine and our borders open again, we want to hit the ground running.
Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
As cases of COVID-19 continue to surge in parts of the world, the head of the World Health Organization says he expects the number of infections to reach 10 million within the next week. 4 million cases were reported in the last month alone.
This is a sober reminder that even as we continue research into vaccines and therapeutics, we have an urgent responsibility to do everything we can with the tools we have now to suppress transmission and save lives.
The number of COVID-19 cases globally now stands at 9.3 million. Time for a quick break, but still to come, a father-son reunion 50 years in the making. Stick around. Here's a look at Thursday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. 27 with showers for Halifax and Charlottetown. 5 with rain in Nain. 9 and showers in Cartwright. 26 in Montreal, rain, and 22 for Saguenay. 26 with showers in Toronto, sunny, and 26 for Ottawa. 27 in Thunder Bay, 21 for Wawa. 26 in Churchill and Norway House, 28 in God's Lake. Showers and 28 for Winnipeg, 26 with rain for Brandon. 23 and rain in Regina and Swift Current. 25 with showers in Meadow Lake, 26 in Stony Rapids. Welcome back. RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki and Public Safety Minister Bill Blair were grilled by a committee last night. It was an emergency meeting called by members of Parliament to investigate systemic racism in the RCMP. Jamie Pashagumskum has more.
Blair and Lucki admit there is systemic racism in the RCMP and say they are making improvements.
The Public Safety Department funded reviews of police policies and practices to identify gaps and challenges in the delivery of culturally competent policing services. The government has invested $1.25 million over 2 years for 4 external organizations with expertise in law enforcement and policing to lead these reviews. The reports have also made recommendations and identified tools, resources, and promising practices that may be helpful in fostering a more trusting relationship and building confidence in police service.
The final reports will be made available on Public Safety Canada's website. Lucki was asked about progress on a report requested by the RCMP on the 2018 killing of Colton Boucher.
I can't emphasize the importance of such a review. It's actually us who asked the CRC to do the review and not the reverse, and it was only because we wanted to be as transparent as we could. The CRC has done an extensive research and a great job on the review, and we need to give the same consideration to the review. I'm planning to have that review done by fall of this year.
This was the first meeting out of 4 scheduled so far. Tomorrow, the committee will begin hearing from witnesses. Jamie Pashagumskum, APTN National News, Ottawa.
As a Brandon, Manitoba family awaits a ruling from a judge who's deliberating on the return of their 14-month-old son, the very Child Welfare Authority who seized him as a newborn has reached out to start the process of returning the child. The mom and dad join us now, but we can't identify them under child welfare legislation as the child is currently in care. Thanks for joining us. You've been battling Michif Child and Family Services since they apprehended your son 14 months ago. You self-represented in a trial against the agency who fought to keep him, and the judge did order visitation rights to resume immediately while he deliberates. How are the visits going?
Great. He did not make strange with us at all. I just really wish he would be able to just come home now.
Dad, you were able to have your son on Father's Day. That must have felt pretty good.
It was really nice. Yeah, I had my son and my daughter on Father's Day, and through all this, it's just wow. It's hard.
Yeah. Michif CFS has argued you're unfit to care for the child because, Mom, you were on the child abuse registry for failing to protect your daughter 6 years ago when in an abusive relationship with a different man. Now Michif CFS worker said just this week in an email, quote, "I would like to discuss a transition schedule to have your son home with you." A 180-degree turn. What do you make of that?
Well, it's absolutely wonderful, but I don't know what to make of any of this. I mean, my son was stolen based on an assault by somebody else, and nobody wants to answer any questions, but I'm back in supervised visitation again, and nobody still wants to answer any questions, but hopefully we'll get him home right away.
And I honestly, I don't know really what to say other than they should not have kept my daughter from me, nor should they have taken our son. And I really want both my babies home.
As you're probably aware, in the news this week, there's a mother suing several child welfare agencies for seizing and keeping her children for 10 years, also on questionable grounds. What are your thoughts on that?
I read about it a little bit, and as sick as it is, somehow I'm not surprised. I feel for her in every way, I really do. So.
Yeah, it's going on 6 years for me, for my daughter. And it does not get any easier at all. It's a part of your heart that is never healed because you don't know if you can trust many people because of that.
Well, Mom, Dad, we'll have to leave it there, but we do wish you the best, and thanks for sharing some time with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
On a brighter note, this Father's Day weekend, a 60 Scoop survivor met his father for the first time. James Suave Bird drove from Regina to Prince George, British Columbia with his son for the life-changing moment. APTN's Lee Wilson has more.
The moment has come.
The moment James Suave Bird has been waiting for is the end of a long quest to connect with family. Suave Bird is Métis Cree, who as an infant was placed in foster care during the 60 Scoop. The journey to find his birth parents has been long, but he's found supports along the way. Nonprofit group 60 Scoop Legacy of Canada connected him with other survivors. 10 years ago, he met his mother as she's passing away in a hospital in Edmonton.
That's how I met everyone. And I went and met her, and we talked on her bed, and I just asked her questions about her life and who my dad was, and she said it was George Suave, and I said, okay. I was like, awesome, thank you for letting me know.
Last year, Suave Bird decided it was time to find his father. He posted his story on social media with the name his mother shared. Someone recognized a similar face from his picture he posted and was able to connect him with a man in Prince George. That man was George Suave, who had a child he didn't know from long ago. Suave is married and has 4 other children. They talked over the phone. There was uncertainty at first, but the two established a connection. Over their months, they agreed to meet. Suave Bird, a single dad, took his son on a journey to meet his father for the first time. A 14-hour drive from Regina to Prince George for Father's Day weekend.
It was just nice to sit across from my dad for the first time. It was like, it's been 48 years, and we both looked at each other and like, wow, this is great. And he really had a good time. He enjoyed our time together at Father's Day. One of the best Father's Days he told me he had in a long time. And it's one of my best too.
We look like twins.
Suave Bird was excited for the new connection with his father. And now he's building relationships online with other relatives. Along with his son, they'll visit family members from his father's and mother's sides on the drive back to Regina. New memories he believes will last a lifetime for the both of them. Suave Bird shared a message of hope for others in search of their families.
I want to tell my 60 Scoop group that even though I don't know you guys, I feel for you, I care. I'm hoping that your journey can be like mine. There's a lot of positives out there.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Prince George.
Incredible story. A new Nike ad is highlighting Indigenous culture. That story and more still to come. Here's a look at the rest of Thursday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. 27 under sunny skies for Fort McMurray, 24 in rain and high level. Sunny and 27 for Medicine Hat, 25 under the sun in Lethbridge. A sunny day for Vancouver and Victoria with a high of 23, 31 in Kamloops. 21 in Fort Nelson, showers, and 20 in Prince George. 19 in Old Crow, 14 for Whitehorse. 18 with showers in Yellowknife, 15 in Norman Wells. +2 with rain in Sax Harbor, +4 with showers in Paulatuck, 22 in Baker Lake, 6 with rain in Cambridge Bay, 7 in Resolute, 14 in Cape Dorset. Welcome back. Now a story about putting the new in newspaper. The Eastern Door Weekly, based out of Ganawage Mohawk Territory in Quebec, is introducing a handy language learning tool for those hoping to pick up or practice speaking Mohawk from home. There are fewer than 3,000 Ganyageha speakers left. Cultural centers like the one in Ganasatake closed during the pandemic to protect elders. To both keep up the practice and commemorate the United Nations Decade of Indigenous Languages, the Eastern Door is now running a weekly themed page of Mohawk vocabulary. Editor and publisher Steve Bonspiel says the hardest part of learning Mohawk is retaining it.
One of the ways where you can say, oh, you know, I forgot how to say fridge. And, well, you don't have to call an elder, you don't have to call the cultural center, you don't have to call a friend who speaks Mohawk. Just look on your fridge, it's right there, you know. It's the ease of access to the language is what it is, and I think that's important for me because we have to get that back.
Bonspiel said he hopes to keep the inserts running until the end of 2020, but the Eastern Door is currently fundraising to make it a permanent feature. A new Nike ad campaign is highlighting Indigenous culture and beauty, and a Canadian model will be front and center. Ashley Collingbull from Enoch Cree Nation in Alberta will be one of 3 people who will represent Nike's N7 shoe and clothing collection. Collingbull is a former Mrs. Universe model and actress. The collection celebrates Indigenous culture and heritage plants across Turtle Island.
I think it's beautiful that I'm a part of something so powerful, something that shares with how we're connected to the land, how we use traditional medicines, and how our culture is so vital to who we are. The fact that there's a really proud Indigenous representation in this brand, and even the people that made the designs, everything is Indigenous, and the money that goes back to the youth, it goes back to Indigenous youth. So it's Indigenous power everywhere you go in this campaign.
Pretty cool. Congrats to all 3 taking part. That's your APTN National News for this Wednesday. For much more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. We leave you tonight with this sneak peek at an event that celebrates National Indigenous History Month taking place tonight. Have a great night.
Crawl into my heart, grip me from the inside. I should have known it from the moment I saw you standing there.